Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the June 3rd work session of the Croton-Harmon Board of Education and recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Everyone, I would like
Oops.
to welcome you to the
Sorry, hold on.
3rd work No session worries. of the Croton-Harmon Board of Education. And recommended
Hold on one
action
second.
that the Board of Education approves the agenda.
Thank
All
you.
right, no worries. All right, so now we will move into new business and recommended action that the Board of Education approves the results of the May 18th, 2021 school board election results as presented.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Iris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. And now we will move into issuing, the district clerk will administer the oath of office for our newest board member, Mary Obermeyer.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
So,
Good evening, everyone.
if you will follow me, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of board trustee for the term of 2 years, according to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mary.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Now we will move into which we traditionally do during our June meeting. We take a moment to thank all of the amazing community volunteers that we have throughout the year. So I'm going to toss it over to Dr. O'Connell for a moment and let her introduce the video we have.
Thank you, Mrs. Carrier. We're so excited to recognize our volunteers, and from the bottom of our hearts, we thank our volunteers for so many things. So we have a little video tribute to share our thanks. So I'll ask Tracy to play our video. Although we'd like to be in person, this is our way of saying thanks.
No audio.
We need audio.
So Tracy, I think you have to go back and share audio.
Faculty and staff. Coretta Scott King has said that the greatness of a community
is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members.
Last March, the COVID-19 pandemic took us all by surprise and in so many ways changed the day-to-day existence for our students, faculty, and staff. Almost immediately, and nearly every week since, I have been hearing from our Croton-Harmon community. What can we do? How can we help? Just tell us what you need, were the sentiments in countless emails and phone calls. And I know that I was not alone in receiving those offers of assistance.
The outreach and support from parents in our community has been amazing. From organizations like the PTSA, Chef, and the Booster Club, to the individuals who are always there to support us, we could not do all that we do without them.
Our parent volunteers show up consistently. I really don't know how we would have done everything we do for our students without them.
The willingness to volunteer and model for our students how we need to support one another has been amazing. As we were bringing students back to school, volunteers were right there decorating the buildings and posting signage. Anything they could do to remind our teachers and students that they cared for.
Here at the high school, many of the volunteer efforts focus on student enrichment. They organize and fund mock exams, workshops for college essay writing and interview skills, and of course, they sponsor scholarships for our students. Our volunteers set up welcome back to school signs. They support our student athletes and our arts programs. They help us fund instructional tools during hybrid learning, bring in guest speakers, set up ice cream socials for our students, host staff appreciation food trucks, and support memorable events like prom and our graduation car parade.
It was really important to keep morale up among our hardworking faculty and staff this year. Our volunteers consistently came up with ways to help us do that. One day it was a food truck serving lunch, then it was a breakfast.
3 critical groups that help us fulfill the mission of our district are our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Stakeholder Team, our Environmental Sustainability Steering Committee, and our Electric Vehicle Task Force. These volunteers ensure that the community's perspective is represented.
Volunteerism is part of our culture here in Croton, and a lot of that we've learned from our parents. Thank you for your constant dedication to our school community.
We also want to recognize our fabulous Board of Education for all that they do to help set the vision for this district and ensure that our students are receiving a great education. And finally, to all individuals and organizations we may not have mentioned, and to our future volunteers, we would like to say thank you.
Thank you, volunteers. Thank you for helping us.
Thank you for always being there for us.
Thank you for supporting our community.
Thank you for decorating the school to welcome us back. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for what you have been doing. Thank you to all our volunteers.
Thank our volunteers. The strength of our work is due to our ability to work together as a team and to collaborate on all the important issues with which we're faced.
Thank you, volunteers.
Thank you for your generosity of your time and of your heart.
So thank you, volunteers.
Thank you very much for everyone who put together that wonderful video, and for our students who were able to join in on the video. Yeah, we are so thankful that we have so many in our community that take the time to volunteer and support our school district. So thank you. And with that, we will move into the work session part of our meeting. And first up, we will welcome Dr. Ryan and his team from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, and they will be giving us an update on the superintendent search. Welcome, Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you again tonight. When we were with you last in April, we took steps to review with you our search process and the steps that we take to secure outstanding candidates for the position of superintendent of schools. I'm joined here again tonight by Dr. Lynn Allen and Mr. Lou Riolo, who have assisted thus far and will continue to assist in this process. As you can gather, it's a pretty involved effort, and we're on the front end of it right now, and we want to talk a little bit about that. with you. We have put together a PowerPoint that obviously has all the requisite intros. So the first page or two is an overview of what we're doing this evening in terms of this presentation, and then a move to the mission of the Croton Harmon Central Schools. And then we get to the really the core of the conversation here this evening. Since we met you last, our first charge was to elicit feedback from the community, and we did that in a number of ways. But the two primary ways were to conduct a very involved online survey and virtual forums of the community as well. And first, I want to thank Tracy, Greg, and Jackie for assisting in putting everything together that made this possible. We were able to get information out to the community to alert them of the online survey availability that ran from May 4th to May 18th. And we also had their assistance in getting the word out and around for the virtual community forums were held on Zoom on May 4 and May 5. And we have some pretty interesting results because the significance of the involvement was really evident in the numbers. As you can see here, 213 participants, and that's really high. We've been doing this for quite a while, and we generally don't get a lot of people to show up in person when you have the in-person activities. And we have even fewer people overall when you fold in the surveys, when you take a look at what we've done around the region. 213 is probably the highest number of participants we've ever had in the eliciting of information that's going to be provided to you tonight. The findings were really pretty interesting. And again, we were really focusing on two major areas. We wanted to look at what were the consistent themes that emerged as it pertained to the opportunities and challenges facing the district. And we also looked at those same themes that emerged as it pertained to the qualities and characteristics of the new superintendent of schools, starting with the opportunities and challenges. And I think we can go right up with them, run right through, Lou and Lynn. It was consistent across the surveys, and no, we don't want to go that far. We're consistent across the surveys and the online forums. The consistent expression of the description of your community, the fact that it's such a supportive community, rich in history and tradition. As you well know, Croton Harmon as a community has a long-standing history. And of great pride was the strong relationship that exists between the school district and the community. Emerging very, and let me step back by saying that you only made this list if this comment or this general theme emerged on a number of offers. So you had a number of people that were citing the points that are raised here in these bullets. So again, strong community relationship with the school. Changing demographics was cited as not only a major challenge, but a great opportunity. The demographics across Westchester County, as you well know, have shifted over the last 20 years significantly, and Croton Harmon is no exception. And the opportunity for a person to come in and have the board and the community and the new administration address the community demographics was a significant point raised. Also consistent across the comments were the idea of respect for high academic standards and rigor, quality of program for all students, especially came out very often those students with special needs. So obviously you have a wide range of students within a K-12 setting, and all levels of needs are expected to be addressed and done so with high academic rigor and quality. And that emerged in the charge. Comments also very evident, educating the whole child, and especially as it pertains to social emotional wellness. Many comments also about a comprehensive offering, so making sure that not only strong academics, but also a respect for the arts, music, and athletics. Expanding learning opportunities for all students and staff. I thought that was a significant point that was raised. In fact, the idea that learning opportunities need to be there for all youngsters K-12 at every level and at every challenge. The same holds true for making certain that staff are involved in learning opportunities that enrich their skills and strengthen their skill sets. Also, a very strong point that was raised is the address of the infrastructure and improved use of technology. The fact that that was such an important part of the current and future direction of Croton-Harmon. As you take a look at the qualities and characteristics of the person that would be assuming the position of superintendent of schools, not a lot of surprises here, but again, they did reflect the overwhelming commentary of the participants in the survey and the online sessions. Transparent, accessible leader with excellent listening and communication skills. Maybe an obvious point, but clearly this person needs to be out and around the Croton-Harmon community as well as the schools, be visible, be a good listener, be able to communicate effectively. Visible, again, active problem solver, innovative, passionate visionary, and clearly a person who has a passion for Croton-Harmon and is going to have that develop over time in the superintendency was very important to the group. Person needs to be a skilled team builder and collaborator. Obviously someone who is going to engage with the community at large, with obviously effectively connect with the Board of Education and effectively connect with staff and students. Clearly outstanding team builder and collaborator is important here. Someone who's committed to inclusion, equity, and diversity. Obviously, current conversation, very challenging to do this effectively, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the comment earlier with the idea of the shifting demographics of the community, the need to be committed to include all in the community in the dialogue of how we move the school district forward. An experienced instructional leader. There's no question this came up time and time again. The person who has experience as an educational leader, has experience with instruction across a K-12 offering, and a person who holds high expectations for all students and has a clear sense of standards of academic excellence. What does that mean? How is it demonstrated across a K-12 student set? A person who's highly supportive, again, correlates with the comment earlier in the other page, highly supportive of technology and the arts, music, and athletics. Again, reinforcing this idea of the importance of a comprehensive offering to students across K-12 and making sure that not only strong academics, but certainly that be in place, but that art, music, athletics, technology is a focus as well. Finally, and certainly not the least of which being important, strong background in school finance, someone who has experience with budget development, someone who knows how to take various approaches and strategies to enhance the strength of the school district on the financial side. As I said, I don't think there are any surprises in these 2 pages, but the enthusiasm and the passion of the participants and the commentary on the surveys was really evident. And again, you didn't make this list unless you were seen time and time again as a recurring theme. What we've done, I know I'm going quickly, but I know Neil has to prepare dinner. So if we take a look at at some of the work we've done for you in advance, we've taken a look at how we would develop a mock advertisement for this position. And a little tough to see on the left side perhaps, but the right side does cover the bullet points that make up the candidate profile of the position based on the information that we've gleaned from the sessions and from the survey. And we took a little license in terms of what the board would anticipate and expect from us to produce for you. It's not yours to go home and start to wordsmith or anything else necessarily, although if there were things here that were radically challenging for you to accept, we would certainly take a look at that. Again, we want to get the hook and the line in the water and start eliciting some responses for the position. And I think we've done a lot in terms of the overall connection with the community to elicit these responses, to build this. It's not just taken out of the air. It's based on the conversations we've had thus far. And again, I won't read them, but I'll just highlight, obviously, this visible leader, be a partner with a vibrant community, innovative visionary, excellent communicator, student-centered instructional leader, compassionate ethical leader, experienced, knowledgeable administrator with a command of New York State education, law, finance, educational reforms. By the way, some of this is repetitive. You've done this before, and within the last several years, and a few of these bullets, not surprisingly, have resurfaced. So again, we're pretty pleased with the responses in the survey and in the sessions, online sessions. And again, this is the work that we put together to begin to draft the advertisement. This is pretty time sensitive. We want to get this out and around as quickly as we can. There are some deadlines in Education Week, and we want to get it to school boards and the state superintendents, as well as the mailing that I have that goes out to the New York State school districts, as well as school districts within the general metropolitan region as well, New Jersey, Connecticut, so we can get the information out and around. We can go to next steps page if we can do
Before
that.
you do that, just
go ahead.
two comments on that, and I don't know if you want them now or at some other point. Because there are two things that I thought when I read that. First is on the bullet involving the curriculum leader, educational leader, innovative visionary. I would like it, I think, not to be limited to updating the strategic coherence plan, because there's more that we would expect with a visionary leader, even within curriculum. So there might be some reworking of those words. And the other thing is, the last bullet, I would add facilities, because we're talking about physical facilities, we're talking about transportation facilities, and I know those are going to be issues that I would like somebody who has some knowledge in the area. They don't have to be the expert, but some knowledge. So if you can work those in as well. Okay.
Yeah, good point. That's a good point. Especially the facilities piece below. The piece up top we'll work on as well. Have no problem with that. Obviously, there was probably more information that we wanted to try to press in there than we could get actually in the can, but we were able to get most of it. But we'll take a look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
And Jim, I just wanted to follow up too, because we're going to be talking about this later. I know that there's going to be recommendations made to the board to really focus on recruiting more diverse candidates. And I'm just wondering if you could explain to us what are some of the ways that you could use this ad either through placement, or if there's any additional verbiage you could put in that might be attractive to a more diverse pool of candidates.
Yeah, I think there is some, and not to minimize it, but there definitely is some stock language that we could go back and find, and we'll make the room to put that in as well. I know as you're talking, Lynn is taking notes, and we'll get that addressed as well. I think we can get it to everyone's satisfaction, but I also would alert you to say that if we make general corrections or at least edits to this, that you're pretty satisfied with going this way. Again, we're not necessarily looking for the sharpest needle in the haystack. We need to grab a needle and start sewing. And we have a pretty good track record with this type of ad, but I have no problem in making the edits that have been mentioned thus far. Sure. I'll go quickly to the next steps because again, just not exclusively, and not limited to what's listed here, but just a few suggestions on some next steps. We know we want to get out and get this out clearly to Ed Week, to onboard, to the NISCUS, and these are kind of time-sensitive websites and periodicals that come out that we want to make sure we're connected with. I also have a mailing list of anywhere from 700 to 1,000 recipients of this material. It will constitute the letter and the brochure. I'm not sure. Do we have the brochure on this set or not? I'm not sure if we do.
You have to close out of the PowerPoint, Dr. Ryan. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Lou.
Okay. The brochure is a typical trifold, but again, very inclusive. We would make the same notations in terms of the edit because the candidate profile bullets are the same as in the advertisement, but the narrative there is pretty involved, but very comprehensive in terms of the description of the community and school district and each school, and then some of the standard other information in terms of prepping. Again, this is all to generate, the bottom line is to generate a candidate pool that, by the way, we've already gotten a number of people who have expressed interest, and we haven't even gotten anything out and around yet. So the idea that we're looking to get the candidate pool going and give us a window of time that will start as soon as we can go now through the end of July. So our open period will run from what will mount to about second week of June through the latter part of July. And we'll be conducting rolling interviews and contacts with people as the materials come in during that time. We'll wrap up that in late July, early August in terms of our review of candidates, and then reach out to you with what you're familiar with very well already, is that binder that has the recommended candidates included, and our meeting with you when you're available. And that could be a meeting as early as mid-August or thereabouts, or depending on schedules, it could easily wait until the latter part of August, early September. But in and around that point, we would have our meeting with you to review the binder and the candidates we're recommending for your consideration. The kind of put together not necessarily a to-do list, more of a reminder or just a heads up if there's something you want to take into consideration. We don't have a salary set in the advertisement or in the trifold, but we do have the standard language there that we've used with the district, by the way, before. I think you need to be able to, however, as a board, come to grips with what you see as a salary range, or a base salary that you would be looking at offering, and we would need to have a good sense of that, because I don't want to be disingenuous in dealing with candidates who have some pie in the sky number and it's not possible, nor do I want to necessarily be involved in any lowball discussions with candidates. But again, that's something you should be thinking about. Next is just taking a look at, it's a future piece, but I envision the semifinalist and finalist candidate interviews not happening until we open school again in September. So it would be December, September, October timeline for those activities. But again, looking at your calendar and making decisions on the front end of the semifinalists when we look at 6 to 8 people, you need to know how you want to set that up, whether you want to do a full day or whether you want to split that out between a couple of day sessions back to back. You should be, we will be working with you, and we provide you with a pretty comprehensive list of possible questions, but will then sort them through and decide which questions you want to be asking your candidates, but we'll be helpful there. You need to reach out to your board attorney to give them a heads up and just ask them to begin to provide you with some thinking about possible contracts and contract language and what some of the current trends are with regard to not only, and we can help there too if you would be interested, but the regional salaries, we can certainly have that information for you, as well as any trends that are occurring within the negotiation between board and superintendent. That's about it. I mean, the other starts a little bit later when we talk about the interview committee and membership and how that takes place and what that's going to look like. Again, you've seen that and what we've done with that in the past as well. So that was a quick run through. I hope you had your seatbelts buckled, and we went through that relatively quickly. But again, that's where we are at present. Really greatly appreciate everything that was done on the front end to put together the forums, the virtual forums, as well as the survey and the way that was set. And again, proof's in the pudding. To get 213 responses, pretty helpful in terms of our ability to develop that candidate profile and identify for you some of the opportunities and challenges, as well as the qualities and characteristics of the superintendent. We'll work on the edit. Would like to have a green light from you so that we can get to the editors of On Board and Ed Week and NISCUS, so this thing can run.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Ryan? Neil?
Yeah. One question I have is with regard to the advertisement, the placement of the advertisement.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about On Board, which usually has 4 or 5 or 6 advertisements in the edition, that the paper edition.
Mm-hmm.
And they're mainly from, I've noticed, upstate districts. Is that something that you are contemplating, that we're going to place an ad in On Board, and not a digital, but in that medium, that paper medium? And if so, what's the kind of response that you anticipate from that kind of an advertising? Because I don't really see Westchester, Long Island.
Well, you don't.
Advertising.
That's a great question, Neil. Great question. I'll give you what I can say about it. First of all, you get more turnover throughout the rest of the state. You don't have as much turnover down in our region. But that said, the reason I think we've been successful in using that to develop our candidate pool is that there's not just board members, but administrators get on board. Everybody sees On Board. And anybody in Nassau, Suffolk, Lower Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, they're going to see that ad in if they don't see it in On Board, they're going to see it in their NISCUS mailing, or they're going to look at my mailing that comes to them directly. They're going to see this 2 or 3 times in most cases. But I just want to make sure that I blanket the region, certainly blanket New York State, but also I have additional going out to Connecticut and New Jersey. Not as intense at all, but we do use those to blanket. As we've talked to you before, and I think everyone's agreed that you don't get the kind of return anymore from the Week in Review. I don't even know if they run the ads in the Week in Review anymore in the Times, but
yeah, they do. They do, and some districts put a lot in there, and
yeah.
I don't think it's worth it.
I think that I can guarantee you that I can blanket the candidate prospects with this. And I also have several other informal that aren't necessarily listed here, but they will help us, and it'll help us with the diversity question as well. I don't have any doubt that we're going to get a candidate pool that is diverse and both regionally, ethnically, racially, and I'm really excited about being able to provide that for you.
Okay, and I guess on the diversity, I don't know if there are, or which of the groups of minority, people of color, administrative organizations might be added, but I think you might want to add that to your presentation. In your, even this presentation, because that's a source that we would like to reach, and a source that is probably more prevalent than it was when we did this search 6 years ago and did it again 12 years ago. So I think you should add that into the mix of of what you've got on your slide. Okay.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, sorry, Dr. Ryan.
No, I was just going to close by saying that that I know many candidates or potential candidates from around the state, around the region, and several that are beyond the region, and the issue of experience, ethnic, racial diversity, and such, I think is going to is not going to be a challenge for us. And the fact that despite the fact that I mean, I absolutely agree with what Neil's saying, so I'm not challenging that at all. I'm just saying that those same candidates are going to be, if you're a candidate and I'll just pick a district from, let's say, someone in Rochester or the Rochester suburbs, and you're interested in coming to the Lower Hudson Valley and pursuing Croton Harmon, there's a darn good chance you're looking at Ed Week and On Board and the NISCUS material, and you're looking at my letter and my brochure mailing to you, and that's going to be your source of your basic mainstream candidate of any and all experiences and backgrounds.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Dr. Ryan or his team? All right, so I just want to make sure that we're clear. So I would see that the sort of most pressing need next step for the board would be sort of getting the green light, making some of those small tweaks to the advertisement, getting a green light on that and the brochure so that we can get that out. And I will happily work with your team so that we can see what those updates are, and we'll get those squared off, signed off on, and we can get the ball rolling.
Would the board be willing to, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to suggest this, but we don't have time to come back to the full board in 2 weeks, for example, with edits and say, how's this look? And then say, wow, that looks great. And then know that we just missed the Ed Week deadline. So, if the board would, if we can do the edits, and we'll do it tonight and tomorrow, and we'll send it out to Sarah, and then we'll take a look at a quick turnaround, and then get to Ed Week and get to the others right away. I don't want to miss those if we can help it.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I would think we all agree with that as well. So. Yeah, I'll happily, touch base with each of the board members, and we'll get this rolling so that we can get it out.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't keep you any longer. I appreciate it. Great video. Thank you. Great to see that. Nice series of volunteers. And Mary, congratulations on your election and your great stint with the board. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim and Lynn and Lou, for joining us tonight and putting together this presentation, and we will be speaking shortly.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Have a great
evening.
night.
We'll see you
Good night,
soon.
everyone.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.
Sarah, I believe
Yes.
we're a little bit ahead of schedule,
We
which
are a little bit
I don't
ahead of
think those
schedule.
words have ever come out of my mouth. But I fear that not all of our equity stakeholder team is present, based on what Mr. Griffiths has shared with me. So is that still true, John?
Yes, that's correct. They should be coming in probably in about 8 minutes.
So do you want to start with my ESSER piece?
I was going to say, did you want to swap then? You said you needed about 20 minutes or so on the ESSER piece.
I think we could even cut that down since we're continuing the conversation again on June 10th. What's important is to verbalize our findings so that people can be thoughtful over what we're sharing.
Wonderful. So yeah, we will we'll swap then 4.2 and 4.3, and we will discuss ESSER right now. So I will leave it with you, Dr. O'Connell.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you can see by this heading, Plan for Safe Return to In-Person Instruction. That is the title that is given to us that surrounds the use of funding that's coming into the district. You've heard us use the words American Rescue Plan and the Elementary Secondary Emergency Relief ESSER plans. And what this basically entails is the federal monies that are coming in. How will districts use those funds to help combat or address any of the impact that COVID has had on school districts? So next slide, please. So I thought this will be, of course, on the website. So I thought it might be nice to start out with our acronyms that surround the words in all of the federal documents. ESSER, standing for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief. And it's really three parts: ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3. The ESSER 1 really was the CARES Act and what they called GEAR. Those funds came in 2020, which helped us, defray some of the costs related to COVID. The CARES Act, as you can see, is the coronavirus aid relief, and I don't know why we wrote that twice. We really like that word, but I think I had GEAR there as well. If you look at ESSER 2, that's the CRISA Act, the Corona Response and Relief Supplemental Allocation. We have about $250,000 there. That spans the years of 2021 through 2023. Then we have the ARP, the American Rescue Plan, which we have about $563,000 there. And that spans 2021 through 2024. I know the board is very well aware of this because during our budget discussions, we included discussions relative to funds. So if we go to the next slide, please. What was very important and very clear throughout the documents we've received from the federal government is that we need to have a process for engaging stakeholders. So if we go to the next slide, thank you, John. In April, we started to really seriously discuss the use of funds with our assistant superintendent reports to the board in public sessions when we were discussing the at appropriate times during the budget process. So that's some April dates there. The administrative council through April and dates in May really started to wrap our heads around the use of ESSER funds. We really started to secure our summer program and beefed up our summer programs that will be offered to students this summer. Pardon me. We then started to look at how we can glean information from our community in the schools, our faculty and staff, our students, our parents, etc. We launched a thought exchange. Tonight being the third, we're having an opportunity to look at some of that stakeholder feedback and share where we are with some of the conversations. On the 7th next week, we'll be meeting with our task force. We'll be engaging in dialogue surrounding the use of ESSER funds. We are scheduling another board meeting for June 10th. That's a week from tonight, which we will once again review where we are with feedback. And what we're zeroing in on, but also give the public another opportunity should they want to share something with us. And then the mandate calls for us to post our plan. Again, they refer to this plan as a safe return to in-person learning, and that would be then ready for our website for July 1. If you would, next slide. So as I mentioned, our thought exchange gave us an opportunity to get feedback from, 3 specific groups. Next slide, please. And I'm going to ask John Griffiths if he would take us through some of the results from the thought exchange so the board and viewing public can get a flavor of what was reported. So John, would you take it from here?
I'd be happy to. So as Dr. O'Connell showed you in the previous slide, this thought exchange was one where you were able to identify which group you were from, which contingency group you were from, whether it was a adult parent community member, a student, or faculty or staff. We were able to have 308 participants, 289 thoughts were inputted into the thought exchange. And you might recall one of the real beauties of this tool is the ability not only to submit thoughts, but start to rate the thoughts of others so that a popularity of thinking starts to be able to surface and be analyzed. Basically, the first analytics is what's called a theming report. Basically, what we're doing in a theming report is taking about 50%, the top half of the most highly rated thoughts, and looking for what the common themes are in terms of the thinking that was expressed. So you'll see here, it is a bar graph by the total number of thoughts that the most highly rated theme was the idea of supplementing our program in various ways. Then as you move down from the left to the right, air conditioning, consideration of student-teacher ratio, social emotional supports, learning enhancement, supports of the non-teaching personnel realm, looking at supporting our English language learners, professional time and professional learning, and then technology. I'll just give you a brief overview of some of the top thoughts from each of our demographic groups. This first is parent guardian, the top 4 thoughts. There were some commonalities that really surfaced as you looked throughout all of the thoughts that were submitted by parents. Certainly that we take a look at our course offerings, that we take a look at enrichment, that we take a look at attending to the social emotional needs of children. So a lot of what we saw really was coming a request to take a look and consider the programmatic side of what we are offering their children. The next one was the students. And here it really went down to creature comforts and really thinking about climate within the school buildings. By far, a lot of the thinking that was submitted was around temperature and the need for air conditioning in learning spaces. And then when we take a look at teacher and staff, they were obviously also very concerned about our student experience and wanting to do everything within our learning environments to best support our students. One of the things that really did surface was the idea of staffing and what we could do to
maximize student-teacher ratio.
So I'll take it from here, John. So we took some of those themes and we took some of the needs the administrative team has noted, and we kind of put them in various buckets. Acceleration of learning, which is the impact of learning, what some of the documents call learning loss. How are you addressing that? Safely returning students to school, evidence-based strategies for social emotional support, and to maximize in-person instructional time. So these are some of the things that we started to generate, thoughts we started to generate based on some feedback. Definitely looking to have robust summer learning programs, examining after-school academic supports, looking closely at is there a way to use these funds to support AIS, RTI, K through 6? And I'll just pause here for a second. What we are really cautioned about throughout, no matter what webinar we're on or whatever agency is speaking about these funds, it's very important to note that these funds are temporary. And it's very important also to note that they should be there to supplement, not supplant anything, etc., to supplement and understand that those monies will go away. So for example, if we hire staff, let's say, to support or additional support in AIS, we know that AIS RTI continues when we, move away from those funds. So we want to be very careful with what we spend money on, because knowing that those funds won't be there forever. And it's very important to look closely at perhaps what are some one-time expenses. So for example, do we spend some money to beef up our staffing related to AIS, knowing it won't stay forever, but during this, perhaps this recovery of what the federal government's calling learning loss, or et cetera, to help support things temporarily over a few years, and then know that we'd have to wean ourselves off, that it shouldn't be things that need to become part of your general budget because you might not be able to sustain that moving forward. Professional development came up, perhaps instructional coaches came up, looking at HVAC and air handling and filtrations. We definitely saw that with the student feedback. I have two asterisks next to that because I do have some preliminary costs that might help us in certain areas where air conditioning is concerned, et cetera, to explore through this process. Disinfecting supplies, signage for COVID. We have to keep reminding ourselves we're not out of the pandemic, so we do have some demands that we want to make sure that we continue along the safety vein that we've been following. On the social emotional piece, we already contract out for student assistance services. Do we want to consider contracting out some more time? Again, over this short period of time as we're coming out of the pandemic to further support our students. Looking at some programs to help with learning as well as social emotional pieces. If we look all the way to the right, using data to inform our decision making, to have some funds allocated to data, analysis, et cetera. And you see some of the other things being repeated again in those categories. So this is what I mean by giving people time to look at where the thought exchange ideas came from, and then what the administrative team is seeing as needs. We started to put it down into this chart form to wrap our heads around what our future needs might be and how we might want to very thoughtfully allocate the funds we are given. Again, we're thankful for funds. We're never going to say we're not. Very appreciative. It's certainly not what some other districts have received in terms of millions and millions, but this is wonderful, and we want to be very thoughtful how we use the funds. Next slide, John, please. So questions and discussion. We are continuing this on June 10th, as I mentioned. I'll give the board some opportunities if they have some quick questions that they'd like to ask. I know we're going to continue this on the 10th. And as I said, I'm continuing the dialogue with the task force on the 7th and get their feedback from some of this thinking and the thought exchange results. And this is where we are right now in terms of some thoughts on how best to use the ESSER funds.
Iris?
Hi, thank you for this information. Dr. O'Connell, I just have, and John, I just have one question, which I don't expect to be answered tonight, but it's just for, I know learning loss is a term of art, but I don't know if I have a good sense of where our students are in terms of the spectrum of where they are academically as well as socio-emotionally. So if at some point we can get that, because that, to me, that kind of would help inform the direction to put the emphasis on,
right.
For at least for me. I mean, I know we've received reports and I'm very appreciative of it, but like now we're at the end of the year almost. What are we seeing?
So Iris, that's an excellent question. So as you know, mid-year, we gave the board an update on where we were, and we compared ourselves mid-year this year to where we were in previous years to give us a sense, right? So very important question. We've just finished some of our STAR testing, our last STAR testing cycle. We're just finishing up with some other, assessment data, which would give us another opportunity to put our finger on the pulse. That's the beautiful part of being able to use these funds over time, that, and another important thing that you've made me think of, Iris, is we can amend. So yes, on July 1, we have to put something up on the website. That's part of the mandate. But they also know that we might need to amend how we're using those funds, which is, very similar to how we handled the opening of school. We had to have our plan up, but they understood, given circumstances, we might need to change. So right now, our administrative team is finishing up testing, finishing up STAR testing. I don't know by the 10th if I'll have those kinds of data for the board, but most definitely we will be using that to drive those AIS and RTI pieces, Iris. So it would behoove us to, give that some real consideration, because those data might come a little later on down the road. In terms of social emotional, I'm glad you brought that up. You might recall we did a screener again when at a point in the year, which we were able to then identify students who might have some immediate needs. That too we were pleased with in terms of our data, but that would be ongoing as well. It's in our mind, and that's why we thought maybe the need might be to increase our student assistance services time where that's concerned. So again, what I'm appreciative of, again, if anybody from the government is listening, thank you. We very much appreciate funds. I really appreciate that we're not locked in to make all decisions by this summer 2021, and that we have the ability to use it over time. I will continue to share information with the board, as we go through and gather it, and I look forward to the continued dialogue on the 10th.
Dr. O'Connell, I have a a question just about some funding that's we touched on before, and I'm just wondering if this is something that we'll bring to the discussion now, or if this is something separate, which is about universal pre-K, because I know that we have received some funding for that and that it is available for a couple of years. I know it's an issue in terms of, you said you don't want to invest in something that will then disappear when we have the funding. I'm just wondering though, if there's any more information about that.
So thank you for the question where universal pre-K is concerned. Yes, we do have funds. I'm not looking at it right in front of me. Was it 180? You know, I'm not certain for sure. I have asked Karen Gatto and John Griffiths to explore the possibility, and they're in the process of doing that now. What I did share with them is what another district had shared with me was a request for proposal piece. I've shared that with them for them to explore. What I am finding, and as we continued, for those who are just joining or don't understand about the UPK monies, which stands for Universal Pre-K, Croton Harmon has never received it before. When we received our state aid runs, districts noted there was some money in that line where they didn't have programs. So when we saw the money in that line, we said, let's explore this because we've never had it before. Fast forward now to today, what we have noted from districts thus far is, yes, there's some of this UPK money, but they found that they needed to expend some district money as well in order to make it work. Well, being that we never even knew we were going to get UPK, you know, as a board, we didn't budget any money towards that out of our general fund. If it's something we feel we're able to do with the monies we have that doesn't impact the general fund, we are going to continue to explore that. And John Griffiths and Karen Gatto should have some sort of update maybe within the next few weeks on where they are with that exploration.
Thank you very much. When I was on a call with Westchester Putnam School Boards, there was a lot of questions about it. It was not very clear. And the thing that was great though is that Karen, the executive director, was saying that it doesn't expire right away. So there's a couple of years to work on this, but I just know this is part of our bonus package that we're getting, and just wanted to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. And that you've added a piece that I'm not aware of. I didn't know it would be around for a few years. So anyway, we'll continue to explore that. It was a surprise for many districts. And again, if it's something we can do that doesn't impact our general fund, you know, that's fabulous. Any way we can, you know, get our youngest learners learning would be wonderful. Okay.
Anyone? I'm sorry, Mary, did you have a question?
Yes, hi. Yeah, Dr. O'Connell, you mentioned that these funds are temporary and supplemental, and they won't be available indefinitely. But are you able to use these funds at all to test out or pilot different programs that may not be available long-term, but you could use hopefully the improved outcomes as justification in future budgeting processes? So like an example, you know, increasing AIS support with additional teachers or aides in the classrooms. And then, you know, again, not in a long-term way, but to kind of prove out and test some of these great ideas.
I wouldn't say it's off the table. I think we just have to be, to your other point, just to be extremely thoughtful. We wouldn't want to put anything in place that we wouldn't be able to support for, you know, further on down the road. You know, certainly open to that. I know CET wants to look at something, you know, specific in terms of what could have a programmatic impact. So that's kind of along the same lines. And then, but we would always want to be thoughtful that it would be something in one way, shape, or form that we continue moving forward. So for example, bringing up the AIS, if we did want to use some of those funds to hire additional staff to support AIS, it's just supporting it. We already had it in place. AIS and RTI will continue when we move forward. If we bring in additional student assistance services using these monies, we would then continue that, even though, you know, we may not have the additional support moving forward. So the intent is to help districts meet their needs now, and you know, of any result that the pandemic has presented. Anything else on our ESSER?
The only thing is, no, I don't have a comment because there's a lot to digest. We have your presentation. I know you sent in a weekly a copy of or a link to the information that came from SED on what we're required to do. But if there's any materials that come out that describe what other districts are thinking of, or what commentators are saying about the use of this funds, I think that would help inform our discussion next week, because I know that you've got to have a draft, I think, by the 15th, even though it's not finally posted until the 1st. So we have a short time frame, and any materials that could help us understand better would be appreciated.
I certainly will forward to you anything that I receive. I will tell you, districts are where we are. They're having these conversations, hearing a lot about summer program. You know, if you noted in our summer programs, we're really focusing on experiential opportunities, really exploring the arts, because those are the things we feel as a district our students, you know, did not get enough of because of, you know, what the pandemic has placed upon us. So districts are not that forthcoming, Neil, to share exactly what they're doing, because they're in their exploration as well, and having their conversations with their boards and community. But anything I get, I'll receive, and those links I gave you, if you can't sleep at night, they'll help. So anyway, and I'll continue to provide anything I receive. Well, I never thought ESSER would be a filler for us, but I think we're now ready to transition to our next piece. Beautiful. Are you okay with that, Sarah, that we move?
Absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful.
I see
Wonderful.
Natalie has joined us. Welcome, and welcome to all of the equity stakeholder team members who are joining us tonight. We're so happy to have you with us.
Wonderful. So John, are you ready for me to start?
I am indeed.
Okay, I just have an introductory statement. So welcome to our equity stakeholder team. Welcome to Natalie for joining us. Recently, the New York State Education Department adopted a culturally responsive, sustaining education framework. This framework helps educators create student-centered learning environments that affirm racial, linguistic, and cultural identities, prepare students for rigor and independent learning, develop students' abilities to connect across lines of difference, elevate historically marginalized voices, and empower students as agents of social change. The framework is grounded in 4 principles: welcoming and affirming environment, high expectation and rigorous instruction, inclusive curriculum and assessment, and ongoing professional development. Tonight, we will hear a presentation from our equity stakeholder team at the conclusion of their year-long work. Throughout our work, we have been challenged with the question, how can I disrupt and dismantle the existence of inequity within my sphere of influence? This work is deep and rich, and I thank our stakeholder team and their dedication to this work. I would also like to thank Mr. Griffiths for being the chairperson of this committee. And now I'll toss it over to you, John.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connell. I have to tell you, I am so excited to be here with my colleagues on the equity stakeholder team. This past 6 months have been a wonderful adventure, filled with some challenging moments because this work is challenging, but mostly very, very exciting moments as we really envision a better future for our students. So to start off with, I would really like to start by presenting a bit of a context for this work. Really like to celebrate that this work is not new to us. Diversity, inclusivity, social justice, they have been hallmarks of the Croton-Harmon Union Free School District's mission for many years. The board and the community may remember that for many years we were working with a professor named Devin Thornburg out of Adelphi. For about 15 years, his research is focused around teaching at-risk and diverse learners. During the time that he was working with us, he worked with a small group of specialized teachers like our ENL teachers to refine their approach. We grew to better understand the experiences of our English language learners by his shadowing students for entire days. And he worked with our entire faculty to examine topics like unconscious bias and its impact on learning environments. And this initial effort led to a consideration for what our next steps would need to be to go even deeper into this work. And that brings us back to the 1819 school year. On separate occasions, Dr. O'Connell and I both had the chance to meet Natalie Zwerger out of the NYU Metro Center. And we reached out to her and we began conversations in the 2019-2020 school year. And then last May, with the murder of George Floyd, we were happy that plans for this year were well in place. As our nation increasingly became conscious of the importance of this work at all levels of American society, I was so relieved that we were positioned to start the work in a substantive way. And that substantive way started in October of 2020 with our community conversation, a dialogue that looked to have a broad definition of inclusion, considering those from different races, ethnicities, and religions, disabilities, identifying as LGBTQIA, different economic classes coming together from our community to share their experiences, whether students, parents, alumni. The power of that event really launched our work. Behind the scenes, it manifested itself with Natalie really doing some seedling work with our administrative council, with our board members through discussion about their goals at their retreat. These were moments for critical reflections on the need to develop culturally sustaining approaches that establish a district-wide culture where every student, regardless of their race, their ethnicity, their language, their religion, their sexual orientation, can be their authentic selves when they're in our school community. Dr. O'Connell mentioned the culturally responsive education framework. We have begun staff development on this framework. We are so fortunate that New York State has boldly created a framework that helps educators to create student-centered learning environments that affirm racial, linguistic, and cultural identities. Prepare students for rigor and independent learning, develop their abilities to connect across lines of difference, elevate historically marginalized voices, and empower students as agents of change. So our work is well underway. That last context for our work is I missed our student leader sessions, and how could I forget our students? The ongoing commitment to this work is evidenced by the many ways that our students meet and discuss important issues. And as a school community, we empower those students to work with the adults and to realize change in a meaningful way. We thank Natalie for visiting with our high school to ensure that the most important resource, our students, are an integral part of this work. They participated in our equity stakeholder team alongside staff members, teachers, administrators, parents, and we came together with a purpose. We began meeting during the year with the explicit purpose of promoting community that shares a language and a commitment to equity and racial justice, affording representative stakeholders a voice in school climate and district climate, serving as an accountability mechanism for monitoring and addressing disparities in attendance, achievement, discipline, access opportunity, and lived experience in the district. These are the members, many of which are here with us tonight. This list probably looks familiar. We saw it on our video of thanks for our volunteers, because a lot of thanks are owed to all of these individuals for really participating in work that is challenging, work that is rewarding, and work that is certainly to lead us to a better future for our students. And with that, I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Natalie Zwerger.
Thank you so much, John. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to your space. Dr. O'Connell and John, you did such a great job opening. I don't really think you need me here. This work is so important, and embarking on this journey, you all as a district are in good company. Across the region, districts are answering the call, quite frankly, even before the New York State Board of Regents put forth their most recent call to action on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You all were ahead of the curve and accepted entering this work is challenging. It will invite some thoughtful and reflective spaces for discussion, but convening stakeholders in the interest of really asking those deep questions about how can we create a space that ensures that all of the children we serve see themselves reflected, experience joy in learning, and really feel welcomed in the spaces in which they move throughout our district. That's bold leadership, and I applaud you and express gratitude on behalf of the entire stakeholder team for leaning into what can be really challenging work. This equity stakeholder team working with y'all was just my privilege, and to see so many of you here today, and I know that others are watching who couldn't be here this evening and will watch later, has just been a gift. The young people are the center and have been the anchor throughout our conversations, but this specific configuration of having family, community members at the table with young people, with leadership, with teachers and staff, with board members who participated once a month. We were first Tuesday of the month with predictability, with maybe I think one weather day that wasn't cooperative with us. Folks showed up and brought their full selves to be engaged in a space where the team was able to do critical self and collective reflection, share narrative. We leveraged the Indigenous practice of storytelling. We built capacity. We took a look at some of the research-based best practices from across the country for leveraging more equitable and racially just inclusive spaces. And we really then tailored the work to Croton Harmon. And this was the space where just leveraging the brilliance of stakeholders together in community came up on 5 top priority areas to really focus on. And these are the 5 areas that you'll hear members of the team presenting on this evening. They fleshed these out over a number of months, really just pouring their hearts into shared documents, refining their ideas, setting both immediate and long-term goals in the hope of giving you all a picture of what they hope to see operationalized moving forward. And as a part of that work, as Dr. O'Connell and John both mentioned, we certainly grounded ourselves in the context of the culturally responsive and sustaining education framework from New York State. I can tell you, as someone who leads a national equity and racial justice center, having that framework as context is so important. Doing this work in other states, I don't necessarily have that same context. And then in the meanwhile of doing our work on April 12th, and then again on May 6th, we had reinforcement from the New York State Board of Regents led by Chancellor Lester Young to specifically call to districts who hadn't started this work, and then to call to districts who had started it and need to get to a greater level of depth, that this is our imperative. This is what we are really required to do in order to create spaces that will live up to the idea of being responsive, and sustaining. And so those pushes gave, I think, the team some real fuel to really define for you what they'll offer this evening. What I will tell you is that y'all are in good company. So just with districts that we work with in the region, which is about 15, 3 of them have already presented this year alone. You're the first of 5 who will be presenting in June to their boards of education. And then we have a number of districts who've been doing this work for a couple of years. And so you all leveraging the networks through the BOCES, through the Action Collaborative Network, you are a part of a regional learning community that continues to grow as we speak. And so tonight is just one more piece of a puzzle that is really centering and anchoring our students who we serve at the heart of this type of work. And so I applaud you for that. And I'm so excited to hear from the team. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you so much, Natalie. So at this point, we'd like to really sort of jump into the 5 recommendations we've prepared for the board. And I'll just introduce the speakers and give them the slides through which they'll structure their presentation. And we're going to start off with Carrie Bianchi.
Thank you so much, John. I want to start by saying that my involvement in the Equity Stakeholders team has been one of the most rewarding and reflective experiences of my career to date. And I'm passionate about presenting on this, this particular component of our recommendations because I feel that it serves as the foundation for future recommendations. So as far as climate consciousness is concerned, in order to develop climate consciousness, students, parents, educators, and the community must feel safe, supported, and able to learn and grow together over time in the Croton-Harmon Union Free School District. In order for this to happen, for this assessment of and response to the pulse of the lived experiences of our district community, members, individuals must feel heard and represented and confident that their story matters. So we have short-term and long-term goals. Our short-term goals that will take place over the next 1 to 2 years include the district working collaboratively with each building to establish an equity team. This will include diverse representative stakeholders, including teachers, staff, administrators, community members, parents, and students at the secondary level, and will work to develop a climate conscious that attends to the varied and often unheard lived experiences of students, families, teachers, staff, and administrators. Each equity team will ensure that district community members know why assessing and addressing climate is essential and create staff meetings and professional development sessions as forums to embed awareness of and the dialogue about school climate. We aim to conduct a climate survey and benchmark the climate survey touching on expectations, students' expectations for their own academic destinations, to help us reflect on alignment or misalignment with our expectations for students. Our long-term goals, which are about 3 to 5 years, involve stakeholders will be surveyed annually, and more informal mechanisms for climate assessment will be used frequently. Building equity committees will conduct regular walkthroughs. Community building efforts through restorative practices will be embedded in the fabric of each building. Thank you.
So it starts with the climate, and then it moves on to really consideration of what happens in terms of our curriculum within that climate. And speaking to curriculum, I'm happy to introduce Elisa Rader and Dana Daigle-Clark.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dana Daigle-Clark. I am a parent of a 13-year-old who's currently out of district and has special needs, and then 2 elementary age students, 1 first grade and 1 second grade. And as you can imagine, this work is hugely important and very, it's a passion of mine. I am not only working on this from the perspective of our district, but also dovetailing into my career as well, and have really enjoyed and have been very thankful to work with the group on this. So for curriculum, our overview is we must strive for a representative, responsive curriculum that attends to the race, ethnicity, language, country of origin, gender, sexuality, ability, culture, and religion of Croton-Harmon students and the community at large, while supporting teachers to use anti-bias, anti-racist, and anti-oppressive pedagogy. This approach must include a welcoming and affirming environment, including high expectations and rigorous instruction, inclusive curriculum and assessment, and ongoing professional learning, and be in line with the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education Framework that came out in 2019. And you'll see that a lot of what we have dovetails and is supported by also then the professional development goals that will come up later on. So I'll hand it over to Alyssa.
Thank you so much. My name is Elisa Silverglade Rader, and I have two kids in middle school, a 5th grader and an 8th grader. And this work is extremely important to me, and I have loved the experience of being on the equity team. Working with everybody was such a privilege, and Natalie is probably one of the most impressive people I have ever had the opportunity to work with. So I'm very grateful to Natalie. She has been an absolute inspiration. So to go into our goals, again, we've got short-term and long-term. So for our short-term, the first 2 years, district teams representing all 3 schools will identify a scalable and iterative strategy for auditing curricular materials. This work will unfold with the support of the equity team during the 21-22 school year. The district team will develop a process for evaluating assessments at every grade level with respect to equity and inclusion, a pilot project with early adopters to use a self-assessment tool to evaluate books, classroom resources and practices, and library materials being used for whether they represent accurate history, current experience, and the global community. The self-assessment is piloted among early adopters in 21-22, while other staff are trained and will start using these self-assessments in the 22-23 school year. A published index of tools and avenues for student participation in matters related to equity and inclusion will also be developed. The long-term goals, 3 to 5 years out, all 3 schools will utilize a scalable and iterative strategy for auditing the curricular materials into their building level action plans. This work will unfold with the support of the equity team during the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. And there will be opportunities for professional learning and capacity building for teachers and staff. Teachers are afforded forums to deeply dive into curriculum and identify opportunities to promote multiple perspectives and diverse teaching strategies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana, and thank you, Elisa. Moving on to our third recommendation, it deals with our hiring and retention practices of personnel, and I'm happy to introduce to you Lisa Bogdan and Dana Sunshine.
Is Lisa on? Is she on mute?
Lisa, you're on mute.
There we go. Okay, trying again, round 2. Good evening. I have 3 children, all grown up, who all went through the Croton-Harmon schools. One graduated 2013 and twin boys graduated 2016. It has been such an honor and a real thrill to be a part of this committee. Learning so much. Natalie has been phenomenal in steering everybody to the point that it is totally okay to be uncomfortable in discussions that we have. It's such a growth process with a lot more ahead for us to work on. So back to the hiring retention practices as an overview. If we want our graduates to contribute to a world that is increasingly more equitable and diverse, we need the environments in which they learn to be a microcosm of that world. Our schools must be a place where all students can see themselves reflected in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, language, and ability in the adult world around them. Every child should have adults with whom they can identify.
Hi, my name is Dana Sunshine. I have a child at CET. I'm also thrilled to be able to present tonight. I believe the community in our district have a distance to travel on these issues, and I'm hopeful this work can help to further the district's evolution and the ability to prepare our children for their future. Our short-term goals that we wanted to recommend for hiring and retention practices our goal is to find a diverse pool of qualified candidates reflective of our global community. In furtherance of this goal, we recommend the district hire candidates with diverse life experiences and skills as listed in the description of the position being hired. Look to recruit those of various races, ethnicities, genders, sexualities, religions, abilities, and native languages. Onboard and support candidates as they move through the early years of their career. Engage with new hires and set up mentorship opportunities, and keep central to our mission of a commitment to ensuring that employees have the full opportunity to thrive. The district must review recent hiring data and measure the impact of participating in the 2021 Diversity Job Fair, expand searches beyond OLAS, review and define bias for interview committees, be conscious of the vendors with whom we partner, as well as the performers, speakers, and authors who are invited to interact with our children. Review and update interview questions and scenarios used to elicit candidates' understanding of and commitment to promoting equity and culturally responsive, sustaining education. Redefine mentorship and foster professional spaces where people can interact and share their lived experiences. Long-term goals include setting measurable, tangible outcomes for hiring with a goal of increasing underrepresented populations. Examine our approaches to hiring to deconstruct how our efforts to diversify can be more impactful. Specifically note how community, regional, and global connections and networks can support future efforts. Begin a practice of collecting feedback from recent hires on their experience with the hiring process and onboarding in the district. Conduct exit interviews of staff to collect data on their experiences and develop ways to foster an environment attractive to educators from underrepresented populations.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and thank you, Dana. This work obviously happens in a broader context in student lives, so the consideration of parent, guardian, and community engagement is our next recommendation. And I am happy to introduce Deslyn Dyer to present this area.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I have two daughters, one at CET and another at PBC. I am extremely, I feel honored to be part of this group and was so happy that we were having these conversations and really having some action steps to move our conversations forward. And I want to just say thank you to the administrators and the staff and the community members and parents who all showed up every month and engaged in uncomfortable conversations. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to start before my slide, I'm going to insert a little context. The New York State Board of Regents has a policy statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it states that a growing body of research finds that all students benefit when their schools implement strong diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, especially when in partnership with parents and families. And that is true regardless of the geographic location of the school or the demographic makeup of the school. With that in mind, the Equity Task Force want our children, parents, and community to have access to the full and diverse perspectives that exist within our growing, and I highlight growing, community, to learn from each other and to feel and be included in their education through active engagement. We are asking the Board of Education to establish a communication policy that will clearly state how we will continue as a community to have listening opportunities, as well as opportunities for engagement for our students, our parents, guardians, and community members at large. Immediately, we are recommending that the school send out communication. I'm sorry, let me continue with the slide. Some forms of the engagement would include meetings, town hall meetings, emails, posters, and also including multiple languages.
also including varied events and timing so that we can include everyone regardless of their day or evening schedules. And we're also asking for a periodic review of the policy based on student, parent, and community feedback. Next slide, please. Short-term goals. We are asking that there be communication sent out before the start of the school year that will alert our community at large about the work that we are engaged in, and additionally communicate how the community will be reached for their perspective and how specifically they'll be able to participate. We're also asking to develop parent-specific communication in the next academic school year. And lastly, we are hoping that to help answer the why we are doing this work, that the community could receive the New York State Board of Regents call to action and policy statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the policy I mentioned earlier. And long term, we're hoping that this work will help prepare all of our students to lead well-equipped lives in an increasingly diverse world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deslin. Moving on to professional development, two amazing members of our faculty, Kiara Herbert and Marlena Horton.
Hi, I have two sons in district, one in the middle school and one at the high school, and I work at CET. I am extremely proud to have served in this committee. It was really empowering to hear from community members, administrators, everybody, and the deep level of conversations we had. And Natalie, you were incredible in facilitating everything. So it was really an honor. So our overview: embed professional development opportunities for all district staff to develop an equity lens that will employ daily to identify and address the impact of race and bias, ethnicity, language, country of origin, gender, sexuality, ability, religion, and socioeconomics in all spaces in the Croton-Harmon Union Free School District. There's a need to be slow and thoughtful in our work and process, while at the same time acknowledging that there is an urgency to the work for our students. Through professional development and coaching, our staff will develop shared language, practices, understandings, and tools, and grow teachers as we learn to educate through an equity lens.
Thank you. Hi, it's Kiara Herbert, and I teach 6th grade at Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School. And like each person who's presented before me, it's been an honor to work across this year to grow and to consider these challenges that we face in our school district, in our communities, and really in our nation. And so thinking about our professional development, we were mindful at all times of the urgency, as well as the need and the importance to be reflective and really build the capacity for long-term change, not looking for just quick fixes, I suppose. So our short-term goals, phase 1 would be identifying key priorities at each building that would need to be addressed immediately to support intervisitation for teachers between classes to see early adopters who are taking on this work. Phase 2 would include year-long professional development plans that would be centered on this work with directed experiences happening throughout the year to develop our staff's capacity with space to talk about and process the learning in an ongoing way, while also considering the possibility for a community conference event that would bring students, parents, and staff together. And phase 3, we spoke about the importance of self-assessment with curriculum audits, where there would be opportunities for summer curriculum work projects, to create standing affinity groups to engage with multiple points of view across time and as we grow and build capacity. Our long-term goals would be that every faculty and staff member would have participated in some form of coaching with small specific groups with someone who is trained as a facilitator, that we would conduct a curriculum audit, and we would want to use an asset-based lens, looking at the progress and our growth as well as the strengths of what we're doing. And we would be developing recommendations for change, which could potentially also include the need to allocate resources to support those recommendations. We would be looking to use grade level teams and departmental structures as forums for professional learning. We are thinking that it's important to build capacity for staff leaders to be equity leaders, to continue to develop and turnkey this work over time, again, really with the eye towards the future always. And then looking to offer learning opportunities to new teachers as they're hired and that onboarding process. And ultimately, we believe that we will see this work in the classrooms, of course, and also in curriculum maps as part of our post-curriculum audit. And I
Thank
think
you,
I
Kira.
said,
Thank you, Marlena. So board members, you could see that through these 5 recommendations: climate consciousness, curriculum, hiring, retention, parent, guardian, community engagement, professional development, we have a tall order ahead of us, what we're proposing. But I hope you share the excitement of what this work could mean to all of us, and most specifically to our students. And before we leave, we thought a nice way to further emphasize the experience that we all shared, and we hope really just sort of propagates as more people come onto this work, is to have some of the voices that you haven't heard yet from our equity stakeholder team, just have a moment to share some of their feelings and reflections with you. So I'd like to bring to the mic here Adam Moore. Adam, are you with us? Maybe he's trying to unmute. We'll check his whereabouts. So we'll move on to Jessica Dykman.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all having a nice evening. I am the mom of 3 little girls. Actually, one is not so little. She's about my height now. So I have Juliet, who is entering CET kindergarten next year. I have Caroline, who's going into 4th grade, so she's in 3rd grade now. And I have Michelle in her 1st year at PVC, and she is loving it. She wants to be totally independent now. So that's really interesting. I wrote up a nice little review I'd like to share with you tonight. I really enjoyed being on the equity team, and I've learned a lot. So here's my little review. I want to thank Natalie from NYU Metro for her time.
I'm sorry, Jessica, you just got muted. Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Okay, I don't know if I did that to myself. I'm back. Sorry. I want to thank Natalie from NYU Metro for her time and involvement in this ongoing discussion. At first, I was a little skeptical and uncomfortable when we started our presentations. But as we went through our meetings and I listened more, I grew more reflective of myself and have developed a better understanding for how people different than myself might experience the world around them. This was very valuable. The program's exercises were interesting, informative, and helped the discussions take root. Resources such as writings, essays, and infographics were easy to access and very clear. And Natalie, a strong and always very pleasant presenter, was prompt in providing links and access to documents when requested. Natalie is a terrific teacher and went far in sharing her knowledge. The time slot for the meetings starting at 3:15 may have made it hard for parents who are obligated to work conventional business hours to attend, which may have excluded participants from different or lower socioeconomic brackets, having less flexibility with their work hours. This is something to pay attention to carefully, as it might be at odds with the team's goals. I feel the committee groups need a lot more time to discuss and plan out recommendations for future curriculum. Goals can't just be put together over a meeting or two. Everyone on my team for curriculum had different but very promising ideas, not all of which we had the chance to discuss further. So basically what I'm saying is, I wish we had more time to meet together as a group, not just work independently, to further develop our ideas and experiences, because it was very interesting. The Zoom format was not without its difficulties. The platform made it a bit harder for people to jump into conversation when they wanted or needed to. However, the Zoom format was a safe way to gather all of the members together each month during pandemic restrictions. As restrictions are eased, an in-person format at different time slot will help boost the amount and diversity of participants. These meetings connected a lot of people who otherwise would not have had an opportunity to gather, and the overall conversations really exhibited how well the parents, faculty, and school board members can work together to strengthen the school environment and commit to the safety and well-being of our children. As well as working with New York Metro, I personally would like to see consultancies brought in to give different workshops and perspectives on how to approach equity for a more well-rounded and broader look at the work we are doing. I feel this is very valuable, and I have some information I can email around. My cousin who lives in Briarcliff, I'm sure Natalie knows of this gentleman, Dr. Bryant T. Marks. He's been working with the high school kids there, and the parents and teachers doing an implicit bias workshops. It's very, they're very well liked and very popular. So I thought also if we could, like, I know this is like a big goal too, to like throw out there, but just have, you know, maybe little workshops or different people come in and talk and just share how they do equity and, you know, their terminology and how all that works together. I thought that would be interesting because he's so popular over in Briarcliff. So I liked him. And I have a news article link about him from River Journal Online. And basically, there's a couple other organizations that I've been reading about since we've been doing the equity work. I've been looking up stuff on my own. One is called, Natalie probably knows this too, Moral Courage. And I really like this group because they bring people together who are like polar opposites, and they find a way for these people to agree, meet, and they talk about how can we meet in the middle? How can we communicate better? How are we using our words? How are we using, you know, how are we expressing our feelings? Like, I just really like that organization. So I just thought little things like that on top of what we're doing could be really beneficial to bring people in who were like myself, like wanting to help, but a little skeptical when you're hearing things and a little bit like, I'm not sure, you know, but I really like how everything evolved over the months that we did this program, and I really learned a lot. So that's my review. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Have a nice evening.
Jessica, thank you so much. It's really amazing to hear your energy and your excitement, because it's been a journey, and I think we've all been on a journey, and it's really nice to see you know, just the enthusiasm that you are bringing to this group, and it's very appreciated. We're going to now introduce you to Anamika Bhatnagar, another participant from our stakeholder team.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. So I have been I've been a resident of Croton for 15 years. I'm a parent of 2 students in the district, one at CET, one at PVC. I've actually served on 3 district committees in the last few years, in addition to this one. And in a professional capacity, I've participated in diversity and equity task forces more times than I can count, at the corporate level, at the industry level. And what I wanted to say tonight is that this experience has actually been very different, and it's been really meaningful. First and foremost, the process, I think, has been thoughtful. instead of rushing into sort of dramatic prescriptions for change, which is sort of the knee-jerk reaction of any group getting together to talk about diversity, this group has really taken the time to assess where we are and looked at the questions of diversity, inclusion, and equity through the lens of how to give our children the kind of education that will prepare them to be citizens of Croton, citizens of the country, and citizens of the world. And I think the fact that the group has really kept the experience of our kids at the center of the conversation speaks to what I believe is going to be its future success. I think that's been really, really important. Second of all, the other thing that has sort of separated this experience for me from again, other experiences with this topic is that there's been real buy-in from the district. The committee included members of the Board of Education who showed up to these meetings, participated in these meetings, and we had all three of the building principals, all three, showing up every single time to have this conversation. That tells you, that told me that there's a real commitment from the administration to move this conversation forward, and that was incredibly meaningful. We've also had teachers from all three of the schools who have, you know, with everything going on this year, with all the challenges that we faced during the pandemic year, they took the time to sort of to prepare, to come to the table and to talk about their experiences. And you know, I will say that for everyone who actually participated in the stakeholder team, this was like such a tough year in so many ways, and it was so significant that people took the time to come to the table to have these sort of painful conversations, because they were painful sometimes. I mean, I know I cried more than once. There were tears. There was a lot of learning. But it just, I think it really speaks to the fact that the district, the administration, the teachers, and the community are all sort of coming together to focus on this topic. And I think we've put together some thoughtful recommendations, presented them in a way that makes sort of a path forward clear. And I hope that the board will give these recommendations their support. So thank you all for inviting us, parents and community members, to participate in this conversation. It's really important, and it's really exciting to see Croton moving forward with all of this. Thank you.
Anamika, thank you. Your words were truly moving and so appreciated. Kenna Weiner is next to speak.
Thank you. It's Kenna Weiner. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Kenna Weiner. I apologize.
No worries. No worries. Being a part of this task force has greatly expanded my knowledge of the Croton Harmon School District and its community. I've learned so much from the students, staff, and community members who make this work a priority. My family moved to Croton right before the pandemic started, and my eldest daughter is enrolled in a fully remote kindergarten class, and also have a 4-year-old. Being surrounded by all the stakeholders on the task force has reaffirmed our feelings that we made a very good decision moving to Croton. In one of our very early meetings, Natalie told the group, "When you are aware, you are responsible." I feel this acute responsibility to guarantee that every child in our school district feels like they belong here. Only when a child truly belongs will they feel safe to learn and thrive. To everyone viewing this presentation, you are now aware, and if you weren't already before, of the essential equity work that will make us stand out as a school district and be role models for this community. With this awareness comes responsibility. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kenna. And to finish us off, I'd just like to invite Deslin back for some final words.
Thank you so much. I already introduced myself and expressed some thanks, but I would like to go back to our very first meeting where, when I shared with the group and shared with John that 2020 was a horrible year in so many ways, and in a year like that, sometimes you just you don't know where to go, where to turn. You're looking for resources, you're looking for ways to engage your friends, family, community, children. And I got in the email a flyer to invite us, the community, to the table for a conversation, and I literally was in tears because it was so needed and it was so timely and maybe a bit overdue. that it was just a thing that I felt our community needed. I would not have met all of you in this capacity had we not have this group to get together with and discuss some very difficult subjects and some very awkward moments. But I feel like, especially having to do this in this year and on Zoom and with this series of subjects, racial equity and everything surrounding that, this was a stellar group. And I would say that what I learned was really how to listen to people's opinions that were different from my own, and how to manage my own acceptance of that. I heard many of you come to the table with different experiences, and I think that's what our community is. And so it was really about learning how to listen, how to engage appropriately, and how to work together, especially on such a exciting but also challenging topic. And so I think we allowed each other to grow. And I think we allowed each other to feel safe, or as Natalie would say, feel brave. I feel like this group is very special and always will be, because we pushed each other to a place that was uncomfortable, but allowed us to kind of be who we are and have an opportunity to grow beyond who we are, or who we were when we started 6 months ago. So for that, I say thank you to all of you. Really appreciate this. And I look forward to the ongoing work that is really ahead of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deslin. To our board, to our community, I hope through this presentation and through the voices that you're hearing, you're getting a sense to the nature of this work and what this work is about to us in Croton-Harmon. Natalie mentioned that this work is happening in a lot of different places around the country, as it should be. And we know that the reaction to this work, if we look at the news and we look at social media, is being interpreted in a lot of different ways. And certainly what this work is about for us, I hope has really been represented, that it is about making sure that we have a school district that is just doing the very, very best we can for each student, no matter who they are, to really feel that they can be their true authentic selves and be in a safe, accepting, productive environment where they're just kids. And they're allowed to just be kids. So that's our work. That's what we're all about. And where we go from here is one of our last slides. I thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long presentation, but where are we going with this is in our next steps. And here we are. I love to be able to check a box right away off of a to-do list. So share the presentation and findings with the Board of Ed check. So that was our next step. And that's what we're doing right now. So I get to, we get to check one off already. And after this, obviously, to give you a chance to digest this presentation, and then really to have the discussions that are so important, to get your input, to get your endorsements, so that we really have a clear direction from the board on how we're moving forward. And then when we do so, obviously, to share this work with our faculty, to the staff, most importantly to our community, to have them, as I was saying, understand what the work is, what the work isn't, why we're doing it, give them an idea of what to expect when. In terms of the when, to really then prioritize what's happening in the short term and the long term. Continue. I think you get a sense that we've developed a strong team, and we want that team to continue. We want that team to grow. I'm hoping from this presentation that there are more people from the community that are interested, curious, really want to be a part of this work. That can happen through the main team or through participation in those equity teams that will be doing some more of the localized work around the district, to engage our curriculum leaders, and then as we are refining the work, to continually evaluate it, to look at our progress, to make sure that we are being culturally responsive, that we are being culturally relevant for all of our students, and becoming better every single day. And that concludes our presentation, and we would love it to open it to the board for questions and discussion.
Well, I would just like to say thank you, first off, very quickly to everyone. Thank you to Natalie and to the equity stakeholder team for your incredible presentation. I think this was a very robust presentation that gave the board a lot to look at and think about and reflect on. So I'm so very happy and proud of all of the work that you guys have done. So thank you wholeheartedly for that. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think there was a whole lot for us to absorb. And I know from our board members who were participants in the task force, they have, they obviously participated with an eye on what we can do as a board and what we can do as a district. And I'm sure as I've looked at just the presentation, that comes through in the items that were mentioned, how they get actionized. I think we have to have some discussion on. I certainly saw nothing that I felt there was that I had any disagreement with. But questions, I think, are for another day.
I would agree with that, Neil. Thank you. And since we're coming to our reorg, in a couple of weeks, we will be laying out a whole new schedule of work sessions. And, I think we've got a lot to dig into here. So.
Yeah, and I would just like to say, as a board member who was a member of the equity team, I heard the word honor used over and over again, and it really was an honor to be part of it and to really have a deep experience with the community, our students, our teachers. I just want to give a little shout out to the professional development team that I was on, because they were incredible, absolutely incredible. And it's, I am going to continue. I threw my name in for future, even though I'm stepping off the board, because it's just been such a fantastic experience. And I can't wait to see where this all goes.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments, thoughts, questions?
Yes.
Mary?
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So Sarah, is the plan that we will be speaking about this with administration and the board at a upcoming meeting?
So we will likely so in terms of next steps, we'll schedule our work sessions for the coming year, and we will likely put this definitely toward the beginning of our work session schedule for the year, so that we can sit down and really have a deep conversation with administration and with the equity stakeholder team about these recommendations after we've had some time to reflect on them and look at the presentation some more.
Okay, then yeah, I'll go ahead and just ask my question, just so we can maybe gather some information towards those conversations. I hate to keep everyone here, but I know this is really, really important. I just want to say I'm also grateful to the equity stakeholder participants, the administration, and the board members who have thoughtfully come up with these recommendations. There's no doubt that there's enthusiasm, it's palatable, and the recommendations are thorough. I've been a part of a lot of committees throughout my career, and as we often do, we typically start off with ensuring that we all understand specifically what the issues are that we're addressing. So I was just hoping if you could take a step back to make sure that the board, the community is aware of the specific inequities that are being seen here in Croton-Harmon in the school district that are leading to this critical work. At the end of the day, things are definitely happening in the state, the nation, the world that are critically important to all of us. But as a board and administration, and ultimately as the school district, our role and commitment is also to ensure that all students in the Croton-Harmon School District are educated and cared for properly. And if all students are not already getting that, I just want to start with getting a good understanding of what has been found so far to be going on here specifically. With respect to, there was a Board of Ed goal meeting on December 3rd of this past year, where the word equity was defined for the board as removing the systemic barriers. If you recall the image, the barrier was the fence, which I really liked that image and that description. It really helped me understand what the word equity meant in terms of how we're using it here in Croton. And that fence was, that barrier was what was impacting people to not be able to fully participate in seeing the same view, right? And so if you overlay that with the goal of public school education, to me, it meant that equity is removing the systemic barriers that are preventing students from achieving academic and social emotional success, growing in the characteristics that are defined in the profile of a Croton Harmon graduate. And ultimately, what we want for all students is achieving success in life. So with all that, I guess I'm just trying to get to the point where I was wondering two things that I was hoping the equity stakeholder group could elaborate on. First, I was wondering what the group found specific to the Croton Harmon School District in terms of the areas where we are seeing student inequity and disparity. There was one slide where it mentioned there's disparities exist in terms of attendance, achievement, discipline, access, opportunity, and lived experience in the district. And I was just really hoping to get a good understanding of what the group has gathered and identified as the more specific findings related to that.
Any building administrators want to start with that, since you're so close to this? Or parents?
I don't know that I can answer your question, Mary, completely. I guess what I would say is that you may need, you may be taking some specific things apart that I can't answer, but the work that the committee was doing, the task force, was not because I didn't join the task force because there were specific examples of inequity or racial injustice that I could point to specifically, although I certainly have my own I could point to, but I didn't take that to the table. I think the work is, and when I started my slide, I said that it doesn't matter what the makeup of the school is geographically or what the experience is. It is about learning about the community members and lived experiences and understanding each other and having opportunities for that. So I can speak to that particular part of our work in that as a person of color, I certainly think that there could be improvements in how we, in our curriculum, for example, in what we learn about each other. There are many different backgrounds represented in the Croton Harmon School District. And I think that we could work on learning more about each other, learning about our community members, and not just addressing our community, but learning about diversity in our county, in our country, in the world. It isn't about what specifically we can point to in the Croton Harmon School. It's about when our kids leave Croton Harmon to go into the workplace, to an internship, or to college, or to a job, we need for these conversations or these understandings of other people's lived experiences to be something that they're comfortable talking about or understanding. Even if they didn't experience it themselves, I think it's important to understand other people's experiences. If that helps at all in one small area of answering your question.
And someone else, I was just going to add also, Mary, over the past couple of years, we as a board have heard from our students. I know some were on the Superintendent Advisory Committee about the lack of diversity in our staff, how they were remarked how they just don't see anyone of color, there's no real variety or diversity when they're looking at the people in the community. And if you saw the goal presentation, one of the things that was mentioned was how important it is for kids to see themselves reflected when they're at a young age. And it doesn't have to necessarily only be through staff. It should also be through the curriculum. It should be something where every student feels value by what they see around them, and they use that to build their own inner worth or inner strength. And that's regardless of whether you see just yourself, when you see others, when you see that there's an embracing and an acceptance of a variety of ideas and respect for different cultures, it helps you be a better person and makes you feel more comfortable in your learning environment. Also, when we had the community conversation, I had quite a few people who weren't, and students, I know quite a few. I was really active with a lot of different type of student groups, and a lot of them didn't want to come on camera to speak. But one of the things that I heard repeatedly from students were, I constantly get this kind of question like, oh my God, what kind of food are you eating? That's so weird. Or, how do you do your hair? It's so nice. Can I touch it? Things like that bothered students. And if we aren't sensitive to that, if we're not aware of that, we can't help them feel valued and important, as well as their teaching moments to help all of us understand how do we communicate and relate to each other. So those are some of the things that we had to look at and address. And one of the reasons why the board adopted the goal it did 2 years ago was really out of the need we felt to really answer this call we were hearing from students and try to see where it led us. And the administration made the connection with Natalie. I know all the schools have taken up opportunities to participate in No Place for Hate. It's really about building that capacity, not waiting for something to happen, but try to be maybe a little proactive and try to become stronger.
And I would like to just add that before we had this space and this opportunity to start having these conversations, you're very unaware of what's out there, because until you go through that cycle that many of us on this equity stakeholders team did, where you are so uncomfortable, but then you start to feel that trust and you start to have those connections and you can start to say things and share experiences. And I think what resonated with me and why I was so passionate about talking about the climate consciousness is that it's often the unheard life experiences. And I know, Deslin, you mentioned that when you were speaking, and you also talked about the life experiences, the lived experiences. And unless we have this forum and unless we embrace these opportunities, we won't be able to ever answer that question, Mary. My concern is that if we don't have this environment and this goal, that we'll never know what specific things are happening, because until you have a safe place to have those conversations, they remain unheard and silenced. And that's why I think it's easier to talk about the proactive reasons to have this in place and make this a goal than it is reactive. Even though we have heard from students and we've heard from community members about specific things, I think it's really more about being proactive and having a space and feeling that we are known as a district that is inclusive and offers equity, so that people feel more comfortable to even share the experiences that they may have had.
I would just also add, I completely agree, and to, support what Carrie was saying, we also have the New York State Board of Regents framework on diversity, equity, and inclusion in their call to action from Chancellor Lester Young. And I think that that's a huge, wake-up call to say, this is absolutely work that needs to be done, conversations that need to be had, and there is data to support it. And it's a New York State mandate, right? That's a New York State call to action. So our district is not excluded from that, from then proceeding and trying to have those conversations.
I know Iris mentioned their participation in the No Place for Hate program, which we've been doing in all 3 schools, and something that we've learned and experienced a lot at the high school this year through this group and through the program is the importance of our role in educating students and preparing them for what's next, but also our role in learning from our students and what their lived experiences are. Earlier this year, a group of our students actually at the high school led a student-led anti-racism conversation with our staff members. There were about 40 or so staff members that came, and the students led them in this conversation just to share what they experience outside in the hallways with friends, jokes that they hear, and how we as adults that are influencing them can help them to navigate and help others to do better. So it's sort of this iterative process where we're looking at, shaping our students and guiding our students, but they're also helping us at the same time and sharing and building empathy and sharing what they've lived through too.
I know we're probably going over time, but I just need to ask, because I think this is part of our listening and learning. And so, Mary, I think that when you were running for the board seat, I think you had conversations. You had were you the one, you had the river walk and chat?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a great idea. And I would say that it sounds to me like there are concerns about this work, which feels very important and much needed. And so I feel like if there are community members, and I assume that there are, and I do expect that there will be community members who question the work that's being done and why it's needed, that as board members or representing the school, that there should be some conversation specifically addressing that as well, so that we could listen and understand what the concerns are specifically and how to have conversations about that part of the work as well. So I would be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I would love to have conversations. I guess I would just reframe it. Not necessarily concerned about the work at all. Just, as tonight is my first night as a board member, right? So, as you all know, but, one of my responsibilities, I believe, is to, keep focused also on the time, budget, and resources that are used in the district. And so, with that, for me, and all the work I've ever done is, we just want to be clear on what the issues are that you're trying to address through an effort that requires time, budget, and resources, and then have, measurable ways to measure whether you've achieved those, addressing those issues or not. So those are just the two pieces that I wasn't clear from the recommendations. I don't know if it's because I've jumped in, at this point in time. I've watched all the videos and everything of what I could get my hands on with related to all the Board of Ed items, but I guess that's more of just what I wanted to try and get a better sense of, is specifically what areas are we trying to address here in Croton. I think it sounds very positive that most of you have answered. There's not really specific inequities occurring with respect to this, but that, it's more.
I don't think that's what we're saying. I'm sorry.
No, that's not what we're saying.
No.
Okay.
Nobody's saying that.
No one's saying that.
I don't want to turn this into a hot thing, but I could give you 3 examples that my daughter came home with this week, but I can't say this. You're recording the meeting, and I'm not going to put her out there. But I think that this is part of the work, that just because I'm not willing to tell you specifically what the inequities are or what the racist things are that I've experienced, doesn't mean they don't exist. And this is part of the experience that I think our board members and our community will need to listen to and understand. I can't explain it all to you. We can, others can, but I would like to, on the other end, I think many of us would like to also listen and understand what some of the other thinking is about it. If there are concerns about diversity and equity, it's not just Croton Harmon, it is almost every school, every workplace, the little shop down the street, everyone is doing this. So if as a community we're saying, that we need to evaluate the budget and the time that goes into that. And we need to have some other conversations built into that specific worry, because that's going to hold back work that is, I think we all here, the equity team, feel the work is important enough to push through and spend time and money on. I don't know how to sugarcoat
I
it.
agree.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not about not spending that. Yeah, and I know it's very late.
But if there is,
No.
but I see that there's going to be a conversation down the road about how we all, I presented a slide on listening policy, so I think I need to stand behind that too. I think we all need to listen and learn to every side of the work, and that's important. So I will try to do my best.
Well, I'd like to jump in just for a second, because I think the meeting that we had, the conversation we had that was the precursor to the equity team, I think revealed a lot. And this idea that, oh, these things don't happen here in Croton is one that happens, kind of like this. Because when you speak to the Black members of our community, the people of color in our community, the gay people in our community, the transgender people in our community, whether they be adults or students, you won't find one who's going to say, I have not experienced bias and oppression and microaggressions in this town. You will not find one who's going to say, I have always felt 100% safe and accepted in this town. And that's not specific to Croton. That's the world that we live in. That's the country that we live in. That we live in a predominantly white neighborhood because it was deliberately created that way. White suburbs were created by loaning money to white people and not to Black people, and building highways, through Black neighborhoods. Like this, our very existence in this town is a result of very, very deliberate white supremacy. So it's not just in education, it's in government, it's in healthcare, it's in housing, it's in employment. It's pretty much every system of government in our society has systemic white supremacy baked into that system. So we start from an assumption that we are also suffering from that, because everyone is. And part of the work, as we discussed with the curriculum, is doing those evaluations, because I think Croton actually does do very, very well in a lot of those categories. But that's why a lot of the work is simply assessment and taking a look at these materials and these curricula and seeing where the gaps are between what we're doing and achieving that equity. So it is specific to Croton, and it is also generalized to the country. So the notion that we don't have these problems or that we don't need this work is one that's not really founded in the reality that we live in.
And I would just like to add, from a board member's perspective, one group that we've been hearing a lot from that we did not mention are our alums who are out in the world. And they have been writing to us and saying that it would be to the benefit of our students if we did do this kind of work. They're the ones who are out in the workforce, who are having the experiences. They've had their own experiences in our school district. But I think getting back to how the board looked at this from the very beginning in regards to what you're talking about, resources, what the data has shown, studies have shown, is that this work, I love it. I mean, it's so simple, but it improves the outcomes for all students. So why wouldn't we put our efforts there? And it's pretty straightforward. So Mary, I say welcome. We look forward to you, having the opportunities to learn some of these things that we've been studying. I know you watched our meetings, but we've also been in a lot of different workshops this year through NISBA and some other, and West Putt School Board Association and other groups. And there's a lot of information that does back up the fact that this is a really a key way for us to be going right now. But again, we always say, ask the questions. So,
thank you. Thank you all.
I think we can, also appreciate that something we've learned along the way. There are various entry points to this work and where people are, and really making, folks all a part of this work. I couldn't be more proud of how you've presented, how you've responded to inquiry, just, continues to affirm my passion with this work. So Sarah, I'll throw it back to you. Did your board have any more questions, or do you
Well,
want?
I think if no one has any more questions, is everyone all set? All right.
So then,
yeah.
if I could just make then one closing remark.
Certainly.
I have to once again, on behalf of the administrative team, thank our equity stakeholder team. Natalie, thank you. Thank you to your colleagues from the Metro Center who have really taken us along on this journey. And I'm going to share one of Natalie's lines. Thank you all, our stakeholder team, Natalie and your team, for sharing your brilliance with us. So that's a Natalie term. And I know that it will take us to our next steps and further. So that concludes our presentation for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. And particularly for the extended conversation and question answering that you provided for us tonight. Thank you. All right, with that, we will move on to we'll move out of our work session and into some ongoing business, and we have some action items for the board. And we will move into policies for second reading. So recommended action that the Board of Education conducts a second reading of and adopts the following board policies as presented.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
You got a second?
On the question?
We've discussed these before. They are basically some financial policy or business and finance policies, as well as some other policies where revisions have been made after considering the NISBA audit recommendations that were sent to us a while ago. The one new policy of note that you should note is policy 2125, which establishes the process by which the students of Croton Harmon High School will nominate and select the ex officio non-voting student trustee, now that the voters have approved the establishment of that position. And in September, the nominations and elections will take place, and thereafter in each May, the nominations and elections will take place for the subsequent year. Policies have been circulated, comments have been considered, and revisions made as appropriate, and so they're here for approval.
I have two items, and they're minor. In just a note, in policy 1050,
yeah,
there is a typographical error in the edit to the first paragraph. The parentheses open, but they never close.
Well, maybe that's existential. Okay, Josh. Thank you.
Just a minor item. Just when we publish it, if we could just fix the typo.
Yeah. That's fine.
And the only other thing, the only other comment I had was that in policy 6410, while the title in the body of the document says authorized signatures, but the title of the whole PDF that shows is Oyster Pond's UFSD policy.
Yes. Well, that doesn't really matter because that is just one of those things when you take a policy or any document and then use it to create a new document. That's how it happened. And a long time ago, I must have, in preparing a document, used something from Oyster Pond, so it is there. But that will not matter when it goes to NISBA for placement in our online policy manual.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Now, recommended action that the Board of Education conduct a second reading of and rescind the following board policies as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
These policies were reviewed by the policy committee during the same process I described. And those 3 policies, it was determined, are no longer necessary. And so we must approve rescission of them.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. All right, now we will move into donations.
I'm sorry, Sarah, I have a quick question. Mary, are you voting?
Sure.
I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Any of that
Sorry.
information yet? So
Thank you.
Oh, my apologies. Those were all in the public. Those were all in the public agenda. So I thought you had reviewed them.
oh, sorry. No, I didn't know.
No worries.
For that. Okay.
So does that mean, Mary, that you are abstaining on those because?
I think that's.
Yeah. So
Yes,
you
I would guess so.
Yes,
You can just
since
raise
that's got to
for
be shown
abstain.
in the minutes that you'll have to just let the clerk know. Okay.
Thank you. Now we will move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $500 from Debbie and Ed Braddock as a contribution to the Dr. Edward R. Furman Scholarship Fund.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $1,000 from Debbie and Ed Braddock as a contribution to the Dan Delaney Scholarship Fund.
So moved.
Iris, second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. I'm sorry, Mary, did you have a question?
No,
Oh,
I was
okay.
trying to eye.
Okay. All right. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $1,000 from Mark Franzoso as a contribution to the Erica Aleskis Memorial Scholarship at Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $10,000 from the Croton Harmon Education Fund, CHEF, to purchase a Unity Dome for the Carrie E. Tompkins Playground.
Before you move that, it's the Croton Harmon Educational Foundation.
What did I say?
You had
Fund?
said fund.
Foundation. My apologies.
Yeah, I just want.
My reading comprehension skills are.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $250 from Agnes Zaharias as a contribution to the Christos Zaharias Scholarship Fund at the Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
I would just like to note
Yeah.
that one of the criteria for this, and I always love this one, is given to a well-rounded student who is interested in many things, who contributes to school and community, and has a good sense of humor. Just love that that scholarship goes to someone with a good sense of humor.
Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $330 from Mothers Out Front as a contribution to the Kindness Club of Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School to purchase flowering plants for the garden.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $4,000 by the Croton Harmon Booster Club as a contribution to Croton Booster Club scholarships at the Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Iris seconds. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation in the amount of $200 from Eric Kohler and New York Life as a contribution to the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School General Fund.
So moved.
Iris seconds.
Second.
All in on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carried. Thank you so much to our very many donors for this month and for your contributions on behalf of the students of our district. We are very, very grateful. Thank you.
Sarah,
Yes.
can I ask
Did
a
I
quick
miss
question? Neil jumped in on the 6.5. Tracy, did we vote on that?
I thought we did get the votes on that.
We
Yeah,
did.
I jumped in after the vote.
Okay, I just wanted to make
Yes,
sure.
sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move into instructional personnel. Be it recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Carrie Bianchi as a 1.0 FTE elementary school building principal, elementary school principal tenure area at Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School at an annual base salary of $155,000. Ms. Bianchi is appointed to a 3-year probationary term as an elementary school building principal commencing on March 26, 2021, and probationary term ending on March 25, 2024. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said principal must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during the 3-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Ms. Bianchi has permanent certification as a school district administrator. Ms. Bianchi has been given 1 year of credit toward her probationary period based on her prior receipt of tenure as an administrator in New York State. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby rescinds Resolution 6.4 from its meeting on March 11th, 2021, which previously appointed Carrie Bianchi to the position of interim principal at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School and has been superseded by her probationary appointment as principal at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in
Who's
favor?
Who's Carrie Bianchi? I don't know that.
It's great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carried. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Carrie.
Congratulations.
All right. Recommended action. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby appoints Catherine Ellingson as a 1.0 FTE ENL teacher at Pierre Van Cortlandt Middle School, English as a second language tenure area, per the next CTA contract, MA Step 3. Ms. Ellingson is appointed to a 2-year probationary term as an ENL teacher, commencing on August 30, 2021, and probationary term ending on August 29, 2023, in the tenure area of English as a second language. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said teacher must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during her probationary term, which includes the years for which she received JURIMA credit. She may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Ms. Ellingson has initial certification in English to speakers of other languages. Ms. Ellingson has been given 2 years of JURIMA credit toward her probationary period based upon her 2 years of prior service as a full-time leave replacement in the tenure area of English as a second language directly preceding her probationary appointment.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District accepts the instructional personnel resignations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 6.1 from its meeting on April 8th, 2021, appointing Zoha Nadeem to the position of school counselor to reflect a probationary period commencing on July 1, 2021, and ending on June 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carried. All right. And now we will move into our consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves all items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Mary, did you have a question?
No,
all in favor?
Well, Sarah, there's just one thing. The
Yes.
claims auditor in that consent agenda, I already mentioned it to Neil, talks about some policy updates and changes. So I just would like to make sure we refer that to the policy committee.
Thank you very much.
In regard to that, I will just show you, Iris. I've already got it.
Fantastic.
We will look at them.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. And now we will move into the closing of the meeting. So this is where we will say goodnight to any members of the community who have joined us and are still watching the live stream. We will be entering into executive session and expect that we will adjourn immediately following executive session. So thank you for joining us tonight. And now recommended action that the Board of Education enters into executive session to discuss the employment of a particular person or persons, contract negotiations with the ATU, CTA, CSEA custodial, and CSEA clerical bargaining units, and to discuss proposed, pending, or current litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, and I will see you in executive session.
Kira, I'm sorry. Could Tracy, did I need a different Zoom, or do I attend that? Or?
Mary, you should have received a separate Meet
I'll
link.
give Mary that.
I didn't realize you were